All right, so let's start with this scenario. Imagine you've organized a really formal event.
Okay, like a big corporate dinner or something.
Exactly. Or even, a wedding, black tie, the whole thing. The venue is spectacular. Everything's perfect.
High stakes.
Totally. And then one of your guests shows up wearing a swimsuit.
Oh, wow.
And like a faded Hawaiian shirt over it. The clothes themselves, they aren't wrong, technically. A swimsuit is a perfectly valid piece of clothing.
Right. And the wedding isn't wrong, but the relationship between those two things, the context, is just completely fundamentally off.
It creates this instant, jarring mismatch. And that devastating mismatch is exactly what we're diving into today. We're going so far beyond the rules you learned in grammar class.
Yeah, this isn't about knowing the difference between affect and effect or, mastering the passive voice.
Not at all. This is about knowing the unwritten, unspoken, hidden rules that determine whether your perfectly constructed English sentence sounds welcoming, competent, or maybe aggressive, or just utterly confusing.
We're exploring that crucial cultural layer of communication that's known as pragmatics.
That's the one.
That's right. I mean, think of it this way. Grammar is the skeleton of the language. Pragmatics is the circulatory system.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
It's the knowledge that allows the language to actually live and function inside a social environment. And our sources for this deep dive, they focus so intensely on this practical social dimension of English fluency.
Especially for people coming from languages that are maybe a bit more direct.
Exactly. They really highlight the leap you have to make to master the intensely indirect and context-dependent nature of polite English.
So our mission today is to fast-track your fluency, moving you past just being correct to being culturally and socially competent.
Right. We want to equip you, the listener, with the tools to quickly understand what people actually mean when they speak, not just what the dictionary says.
Because if you can decode these hidden rules, you get a massive shortcut to building relationships and navigating professional life in English. It's a huge advantage.
It really is.
Okay, so let's unpack this and pull back the curtain on why context is truly king.
Well, to start with a foundational definition, pragmatics is basically the study of how non-linguistic factors influence meaning.
So things outside the words themselves.
Exactly. Crucially, the context, the identity of the speaker and the listener, and the location. All of these things influence the intended meaning of what you say.
So before a fluent English speaker even opens their mouth, they're running this quick mental check.
A very rapid check, yeah. Subconsciously asking 3 critical questions that determine how they're going to structure their speech.
And these questions, according to our source material, are the core filters we all need to adopt. First, who are you talking to? Second, where are you?
Right.
And third, what exactly is the situation?
Precisely. If we simplify it, grammar teaches you how to build a structurally sound vehicle, like a car.
Okay.
Pragmatics teaches you how fast to drive that car, who to pick up, and where to park it so you don't get a ticket.
So if you fail the grammar test, you might use the wrong word.
Right, a simple mistake. But if you fail the pragmatic test, you might offend someone. Or you might miss a critical piece of information, even if your grammar was, 100% flawless.
We saw that funeral example in the outline. Saying, hey, what's up, is structurally sound. It's perfect grammar.
But it's socially catastrophic in that specific context. The context overrides the vocabulary every single time.
Okay, let's start with a really fundamental structural challenge that English presents. This is especially true for listeners coming from languages that have different levels of respect built right into the language itself.
Yeah, and that challenge revolves entirely around one very common pronoun, you.
Just you.
This is a massive stumbling block for so many learners. A lot of languages, especially those from more hierarchical cultures, have distinct words for you.
Right, one word for your friend, another for your boss.
Exactly. The sources mention examples like oba or umpa, or using specific honorifics that just automatically convey respect and formality. You don't even have to think about it.
So the language itself is doing all the heavy lifting of signaling respect. You just pick the right you from your vocabulary, and the politeness level is set.
It's prepackaged. But English is it's a flat language in this regard.
Flat.
We only have one word, you.
Yeah.
And that word is completely neutral when it comes to social status or familiarity.
So if we can't change the pronoun to signal whether we're speaking to, say, our kid or our CEO, How on earth is politeness and respect conveyed in English?
The burden shifts completely. It shifts from the word to the sentence. We have to change the entire sentence structure and the choice of verbs.
Okay, so it's not about the noun, it's about the verb and the structure around it.
Yes. And the core mechanism is shifting from a direct command or assertion to something softer, more tentative, and often much, much longer, an indirect request.
That distinction, direct versus indirect, sounds like it's the absolute lifeblood of English politeness.
It really is.
And that structural shift is so beautifully illustrated by a really simple act, just asking for a pen. It totally depends on who we're talking to.
Right. So if I'm talking to my spouse or my best friend or my colleague who sits next to me every single day.
Someone you have high familiarity with.
Exactly. Someone I have a high familiarity relationship with, I can be totally direct.
So you'd just say,
Give me your pen. It's efficient, it's short, it's a clear command.
Hmm.
In fact, using overly formal language with a close friend would actually be the pragmatic error there.
oh, interesting. So they'd think you were being weird.
They'd think you were mocking them or maybe angry about something. The direct command works because the social relationship already grants you that license.
Okay, but now let's take that exact same need, I need a pen, and direct it towards someone we don't know well. Let's say the CEO of the company or a brand new client. If I walk up to them and say, give me your pen, how is that perceived?
Not just rude, but aggressively demanding. The listener hears that command structure, give me, and because there's no pre-existing relationship to justify that directness, they interpret it as disrespect.
So what's the pragmatic solution? How do we fix it?
The solution, as the source materials really emphasize, is to transform that command into a question that seeks permission and uses softening modal verbs.
So instead of give me your pen,
You'd use the much longer, could I possibly borrow your pen for a moment, please?
wow, that's almost twice as many words.
And what's crucial to recognize there is that the length of the sentence often directly correlates with the level of politeness required.
More words, more structural softening equals more respect.
Exactly. So the fundamental lesson for you, the listener, is this. When you're dealing with people you don't know well, or people in authority, or anyone you want to show deference to, you have to replace direct demands with these indirect question-based requests.
Okay, so that's adjusting for the listener, the who, but that leads us right into the other side of context, adjusting for where you are and what the situation is.
Yes. And this brings us back to that complex, really fascinating concept of implied meaning. The source materials use the term Vangartha.
I think we need to spend a bit more time on that idea, Vangartha, this concept that the external environment allows us to make requests without ever actually saying them.
It's the ultimate polite shorthand. I mean, English speakers often feel awkward stating their needs directly. It can sound a bit demanding or self-centered.
So we complain instead.
We complain about the environment. We rely heavily on the environment to communicate our needs in code, and we put the responsibility on the listener to interpret the complaint and then perform the corrective action.
Okay, let's use the classic environmental complaint scenario from the sources. The door. You're in a freezing office or maybe a cold classroom, and the door is wide open, letting in a draft.
At home, with your family, efficiency dictates. You just say, close the door.
Direct, fast, effective.
But in a professional or a formal setting, you would be pragmatically wrong to issue that order to the nearest person.
So what do you do?
Instead, you state a simple, objective fact about the environment. You'd say something like, it's a bit cold in here, isn't it?
And the magic is that the context-aware listener, the one who understands Vangartha, immediately processes that statement as something else entirely.
Right. They hear, the speaker is uncomfortable because of the temperature, and I am the person closest to the door, therefore I must close it.
So the speaker never had to demand anything.
And the listener gets to appear proactive and sensitive. It's a win-win.
This is a really deep cultural insight, isn't it? It highlights this English preference for non-confrontation and relational harmony over pure communicative efficiency.
The trade-off is really clear. By avoiding a direct command, you're being politer, but you're also forcing the listener to do more cognitive work to decode your actual need.
And if the listener fails to decode it,
Well, then the speaker gets cold and the listener is perceived as rude or insensitive, even though no direct instruction was ever missed.
that whole process of interpretation, where the tone and the context completely override the literal meaning, that applies even to single, simple words. We saw the example of the word fine.
If the context is positive, the literal meaning holds. How are you? I'm fine. Great.
But if the context is negative or tense,
The word completely flips its meaning. 180 degrees.
Okay, let's stick with that tense domestic scenario the source provides. A disagreement has just happened. The husband, trying to reconcile, tentatively asks, "Are you angry?"
And the wife turns away, her body language is closed off, and she delivers the response with a sharp, clipped, very dismissive tone. I'm fine.
Literally, she is confirming her wellness. She is saying, "I am well."
But pragmatically,
Yeah.
she is issuing an intense warning.
She's really saying, "I am absolutely furious. You should know why I'm angry. Do not push this and do not speak to me again until I decide to resume communication."
Yes, the phrase I'm fine becomes an aggressive boundary marker in that context.
So this reliance on nonverbal cues is essential for our listeners to absorb. When a situation is charged with emotion or tension, you have to completely distrust the literal dictionary meaning of positive or neutral words.
You have to observe their body language, their mood, and above all, their tone.
And if the tone and the words conflict.
The tone always wins. Every single time.
And I think that reliance on tone must make communication in remote settings like, phone calls or non-video conference calls or especially email incredibly challenging.
Oh, it adds an enormous layer of difficulty. Without the visual cues of a stiff posture or an averted gaze, and without the acoustic fidelity to detect a clipped or sharp tone, these pragmatic codes, they just break down entirely.
Which is why misunderstandings are so common in written communication. We lose the crucial context that allows us to decode "I'm fine" as "I'm furious."
It's a risk native speakers navigate constantly, and it's a really important lesson for our listeners to be far more direct and explicit in communication where tone cannot be reliably transmitted.
Well, if we understand that need for structural change, it leads us right into Section 2, which is arguably the most practical chapter for daily interaction.
Right. How to transform a basic request from a demand into a suggestion. And the source material highlights the single biggest mistake people make when they're trying to apply politeness in English.
What's that?
They think adding the word please solves all their problems.
Oh, right. It's like a magic politeness word.
It is a massive communicative trap because it's based on a flawed assumption. Let's look at the example. Telling a guest in your home, "Sit down, please."
The speaker believes they were polite because they added please. They think they've checked the politeness box.
But to the native ear, the structure itself, the imperative verb, sit down, it still overrides the addition of please. It still sounds like a harsh, non-negotiable command.
Almost like an instruction from a police officer, or worse, a dog trainer.
Exactly. The problem is structural, not adverbial.
So the core difference is philosophical. Politeness isn't an addition you just tack on, like please. It's a full transformation of the command itself.
Yes, the structure has to be changed from an order into a question or a softer statement.
The source emphasizes that true English politeness lies in avoiding those imperative verbs entirely and changing the sentence structure to turn the order into an inquiry or a gentle suggestion.
And this shift is so vital for cultural fluency. In languages where directness, maybe softened by a warm tone, is enough, translating that directly, it just doesn't work.
Saying something like give water or serve food, even with a smile, sounds like a command in English.
Right. The polite English way has to use suggestion. Maybe, "May I have some water?" Or "Would you like some rice?"
And this brings us to the engine of English politeness, the ladder of politeness.
Which uses modal verbs to escalate formality. This framework is absolutely fundamental for navigating social and professional life smoothly.
Okay, so we have 4 very clear levels, moving from maximum directness and low politeness up to high formality. Let's not just use the door example again. Let's apply this to a professional context. Maybe requesting a key document from a colleague.
Okay, sounds good. So level 1, imperative. This is the blunt command. Send me the report now.
Low politeness, high offense potential.
Yes. This is only for genuine emergencies. Or maybe giving instructions to someone far below you in status, like a small child, if you really want to sound definitive.
All right, level 2, using can.
This confirms ability, but it's still pretty casual. Can you send me the report? It's informal, perfectly fine for friends or long-term close colleagues, but it still lacks true deference.
Okay, so what's the next step up?
Level 3, using could. This is the gold standard for daily polite interaction in English. Could you send me the report by this afternoon?
Why is could so much better than can?
Using could transforms a demand into a respectful hypothetical request. It's the most commonly used polite form in the office, with clients, strangers, or in shops. It's your standard professional safety net.
And then when the stakes are high, the favor is large, or the person is of immense seniority, we climb to level 4.
Which is using would you mind.
High formality. Would you mind sending me the final version of the report today?
And remember the little linguistic trap here. Mind must always be followed by the gerund form, the verbing, so it's mind sending.
Right, so would you mind to send me is wrong.
It's wrong. This structure expresses the highest level of deference because it's implicitly asking, will this request cause you inconvenience? It gives the listener an easy out if the favor is too large.
Okay, moving on to another common error the source has identified, the conflict between the verbs want and like. This is all about managing the perception of entitlement.
Yes, stating, I want coffee, or I want to speak to Mr. Pereira right now, places your ego front and center. It sounds fundamentally demanding and often a bit childish.
Like you expect immediate gratification without having to go through the social pleasantries.
That's it exactly. The key to politeness here is replacing that demanding present tense want with the softer conditional structure would like.
So if you say, I would like to meet with Mr. Pereira, or the very common contraction, I'd like a cup of tea, please.
You're expressing a preference or a desire that is conditional and less insistent. It sounds deferential. The structure inherently respects the idea that your desire may or may not be immediately fulfilled, which is crucial for maintaining politeness in a service or professional exchange.
We've focused a lot on making polite requests, but what about the difficult act of delivering negative information or refusing a request? English culture puts enormous effort into avoiding a blunt, jarring no.
Absolutely. A direct, unqualified no or I can't help you is seen as unnecessarily confrontational and abrupt. The cultural emphasis is all on cushioning the impact of the rejection.
And the primary technique for the softening is using a setup phrase. It prefaces the rejection, signaling empathy and regret before the bad news actually lands.
And the phrase our sources pinpoint is, I'm afraid.
I'm afraid.
Using I'm afraid is a mechanism for sharing or expressing regret over the situation, even if you are not personally responsible for the negative outcome. It shifts the emotional emphasis away from confrontation toward empathy.
So if a client asks you for something you can't give them right now,
Instead of saying, I can't help you, you preface it. I'm afraid I can't help you right now, as that document is still being drafted.
or if you're a receptionist screening visitors and someone asks to see a colleague who is out of the office,
The polite, standard way to deliver that bad news is, I'm afraid he is not in the office at the moment. This structure lets you politely inform the visitor that their expectation won't be met, but you're still maintaining a warm and professional tone.
So the takeaway from this whole section before we move on is that you have to proactively identify and replace those direct imperative phrases that translate so poorly into English.
Because of their inherently demanding structure.
Right. Let's quickly review the core translational fixes that our listeners can apply immediately.
Okay, first, never say, sit down. It's commanding, almost aggressive. Replace it with the welcoming suggestion, have a seat, or please take a seat.
Second, the command wait here is too abrupt.
Soften it by adding a question structure. Could you wait here for a moment, please?
And third, when you're giving an opinion on something you dislike, avoid the blunt refusal. No, I don't like it.
This is unnecessarily harsh. You can use the soft refusal that avoids criticism. It's not really for me, thanks. Or maybe, that's lovely, but I think I'll pass. This maintains relational harmony even when you're rejecting something.
The overarching rule is crystal clear, isn't it? Don't order, suggest. If you can master the ability to transform demands into conditional questions, you've pretty much mastered the art of polite English.
So this is where we move past just structural politeness and into some advanced decoding. This section forces us to confront the reality that often the literal words being used are not the message at all.
We have to train ourselves to recognize the social meaning, the pragmatic meaning, that's hidden just beneath the grammatical surface.
And the key mechanism here is what the sources call the yes-no trap.
This must be incredibly frustrating for people who rely on efficiency and literal communication.
It is. Grammatically, a question might ask about a state of being or possession. But pragmatically, it's actually a request for action or information. And the listener who only pays attention to the literal meaning will fail socially.
The classic public example is asking for the time.
Right. If a stranger on the street asks you, do you have the time? And you look down at your watch, see that you do, and you correctly answer yes, and then just keep walking.
You've delivered a perfectly accurate grammatical answer.
But you have committed a massive pragmatic failure.
They'll think you're socially inept or that you're being intentionally antagonistic.
They will. The actual request was, please tell me what time it is. The focus is not on possession. Do you possess the ability to know the time? The focus is on the desired action.
So the only correct response is providing the information. It's 10.30.
Exactly. And this applies equally to objects nearby. If you're sitting at a dinner table and someone asks, do you have the salt? The answer is never yes. It is always to perform the implied request. Here you go, while passing the salt.
Okay, now, this concept of implied action gets significantly more complex when English speakers start disguising their request as complaints about the environment.
Or observations about a shared situation. This is pure conflict avoidance.
So why do they do this?
They do it to avoid the burden of demanding change. They place the burden of interpretation and action onto the listener.
Let's go back to that noise complaint scenario, maybe in a quiet library or a study space. Someone enters and says, "It's a bit loud in here, isn't it?"
On the surface, it's just an observation, a statement of fact.
But what is the actual implied request, especially if the speaker is an authority figure or maybe an older person?
The actual decoded meaning is stop making noise or turn the volume down immediately. The polite listener hears the discomfort being expressed and performs the corrective action without needing a direct order.
So if you were to reply, "Yes, it is loud because the students are talking," you're being socially obtuse.
Completely. You're discussing the literal meaning when the pragmatic intent was clearly corrective action.
This mechanism is employed most ruthlessly in the scenario of the hint to leave. Say you're a guest at someone's home and the hour is getting late. The host looks pointedly at the clock and says, "Wow, look at the time. It's almost midnight."
This is a classic, highly effective social cue. It is absolutely not an expression of delight or surprise about the flight of time.
It's a calculated, indirect statement intended to prompt action.
Yes. The subtext is, I am exhausted. Our social contract for this evening is over. Please recognize the late hour and leave now so I can go to sleep.
I think this is a crucial point to emphasize. The social stakes are really high here. If the visitor misses that implied request and replies with something like, "Time flies when we're having fun," let me just tell you one more story.
They transition from being a pleasant guest to being profoundly rude and insensitive. They are forcing the host to abandon the indirect code and deliver a jarring, direct command to leave, which is exactly what the host was trying so hard to avoid.
And this inherent indirectness carries over to refusals too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because English speakers prioritize saving face, protecting both their own social standing and that of the person they're speaking to. A direct refusal is almost always avoided when rejecting a social invitation.
So we need to learn to decode these non-committal answers as soft rejections and manage our expectations accordingly.
Yes. If you invite someone to an event, they'll often use a softening phrase that expresses regret but cites an external, unavoidable barrier.
What's the best way to do that?
The best polite refusal is one that shows regret but externalizes the blame. I wish I could, but I have work that weekend, or that sounds amazing, but I already have a conflicting commitment.
And other coded rejections are vaguer, like maybe next time, or that sounds great, but that "but" is the key, isn't it?
That concluding conjunction "but" is always the signal that the invitation has been rejected.
And here is the absolutely essential warning for social planning from the sources.
If someone responds to your invitation with the phrases, "I'll try to make it," or "let me check my calendar and get back to you," you should treat this as a 90% chance of a no.
Really? 90%?
They are using this non-committal language as a polite delaying tactic. If they genuinely wanted to come, they would use affirming language like, "Yes, definitely," or "I can't wait." Do not plan your event counting on their presence.
That feels profoundly inefficient, but I guess it's socially necessary. And speaking of deceptive language, let's turn to perhaps the most dangerous and misleading word in the professional English vocabulary.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting. This word is an absolute minefield, particularly in British or high-stakes business English.
Literally, it means fascinating or engaging.
But contextually, it can mean the exact opposite.
Okay, so imagine presenting a radical new project idea to your boss or a potential investor. You finish your pitch, heart pounding, and they lean back and say, that's intelligent. If you're relying on the literal meaning, you think you've scored a hit. But the pragmatic meaning in, I'd say, 75% of negative professional feedback situations is, "This is deeply flawed," or "I don't like this idea at all, but I'm too polite to crush your enthusiasm directly."
So the word acts as a polite dismissal.
Yes. The key to decoding this isn't the word itself, but the surrounding context and, crucially, the tone. If they genuinely like the idea, They will not use neutral language. They will use strong, affirming language.
Brilliant. Or a superb idea.
Exactly. If the tone is drawn out, hesitant, or followed by a period of silence, that drawn out interesting, you should immediately interpret it as a sock rejection and start preparing a plan B.
This tendency to soften or subvert meaning is so ingrained that we can actually look at a table of common indirect phrases where the literal meaning and the intended meaning are almost perfectly inverted.
We should definitely run through these. They really demonstrate the level of decoding required for true cultural fluency.
Okay, first up, I hear what you say.
Literally, it's a confirmation of listening. But pragmatically, especially when delivered in a serious tone, it means, I listened to your entire argument, but I fundamentally disagree with everything you just said.
It's a polite way to dismiss their viewpoint while acknowledging their effort.
Yes.
Next up, the incredibly formal sounding with all due respect. This sounds like the epitome of deference, yet it serves as a massive red flag.
It is the verbal equivalent of raising a sword before a duel. It means, I am about to tell you that you are completely fundamentally wrong, but I'm going to start by paying lip service to your seniority first.
It's a formal prelude to contradiction. And regarding time management, we noted, I'm almost there.
This is a statement of intent, not a statement of location. It's almost always a highly optimistic estimate. In reality, it means, I haven't left home yet, or I am 15 minutes behind schedule. You should interpret this phrase as confirmation that the speaker is currently running late.
And finally, a great example of social ritual versus actionable commitment. We must have lunch sometime.
This is a friendly platitude. It's an expression of goodwill and a desire to maintain rapport, not a definite actionable plan that requires immediate scheduling.
So if you respond by pulling out your calendar,
You have violated the pragmatic rules and will likely cause a lot of awkwardness.
So if the previous section showed us how to speak in code, this section focuses on the ultimate high-risk communicative strategy, saying the exact opposite of what you mean. We're diving into sarcasm and irony.
Sarcasm is inherently difficult because it requires the listener to not only understand the literal statement, but to cross-reference it with the context to determine the speaker's true opposite intent.
And the source provides the clearest formula for it.
Bad situation plus positive words, sarcasm.
Let's elaborate on that classic scenario. Someone makes a significant mistake. They break an expensive piece of equipment, or maybe they delete a critical file.
Right, and you exclaim, oh, brilliant, well done, you've really helped us out there.
To a listener focused only on the literal words, they hear brilliant and well done. They might think they've actually been praised.
But because the context is so clearly negative, the equipment is broken, the phrase flips entirely. The pragmatic meaning is a form of mockery. You made a stupid, significant mistake, and you've caused us a lot of trouble.
And this principle works just as well outside of professional disasters. If you're standing outside during a torrential downpour, soaked to the skin, and someone comments, "Lovely weather we're having today, isn't it?"
They mean, the weather's terrible, but I'm too polite or maybe just too used to expressing misery indirectly to state that fact plainly.
And in a professional setting, imagine a meeting that's running 3 hours over schedule.
A colleague might mutter, this is just a perfect use of everyone's time. They are communicating very clearly. This meeting is tedious and a catastrophic waste of time.
So given that the words used are almost universally positive, the decoding of sarcasm relies almost entirely on the vocal delivery.
Yes, sarcasm is impossible to detect without noticing vocal tone, pace, and facial expression.
The sources identify two primary delivery styles for sarcasm, both relying on a profound mismatch between the emotion expressed and the emotion conveyed. First, the deadpan delivery.
Right. Deadpan is characterized by a monotone, emotionless vocal delivery, often paired with a blank, unsmiling face.
So when someone delivers a statement like, "I am so excited to be here," in an absolutely flat voice,
The lack of enthusiasm is the message. The audience understands that the speaker is bored or deeply unhappy.
and second style.
We have the exaggerated tone. This involves heavily drawing out words, overinflecting, and using obvious insincerity. This is often used to express disbelief or mockery.
So if someone tells a wildly improbable story,
The listener might reply, drawing out vowel sounds, yay! The literal words confirm the story's veracity, but the tone of high theatrical disbelief communicates that is a total fabrication. I absolutely do not believe you.
okay, let's highlight some phrases that are overwhelmingly used sarcastically in specific contexts so our listeners know to proceed with extreme caution if the context is negative.
Thanks a lot. This is often not gratitude.
No.
If someone has caused you minor to major inconvenience and you snap this phrase at them, you are saying, "You caused me unnecessary trouble, and I am annoyed by your incompetence."
Another risky phrase is, good luck with that.
Delivered with skepticism, it's not a genuine well-wish at all. It means what you are attempting is so difficult or ill-advised that it is highly likely to fail.
It's a very soft way of expressing intense doubt without actually saying, your plan is terrible.
Exactly.
And we revisit the word fascinating. If a colleague is presenting data that is clearly boring or confusing,
And a listener says fascinating, with a slight pause or drawing out the syllables, they mean this is profoundly boring or tedious.
the complexity of irony and sarcasm really culminates in that unique cultural practice known as the British understatement.
This is where British culture minimizes major events or disasters, using language that dramatically downplays the severity. It's restraint weaponized.
This is a crucial concept to grasp because it's an inverse of the drama we often see in other cultures, including American English, which sometimes leans toward exaggeration.
Yes. The British pragmatic assumption is that the reality of the disaster is already known to everyone involved, so there's no need to articulate it fully.
Because articulating it fully would be seen as overly emotional or melodramatic.
Exactly. So if a colleague arrives with a broken arm after a severe accident, the common observation might be, "You seem to have had a bit of an issue."
Which means you have suffered a massive life-altering trauma.
Precisely. Or if the company is facing an existential crisis, the stock market has crashed, half the staff has quit, the CEO might stand up and dryly announce, "We have a slight problem that needs attention."
The severity of the language is deliberately disconnected from the severity of the situation. It's designed to project calm and emotional control.
And, conversely, this minimizing language also applies positively.
Right. If a British person is trying a new restaurant and says, that wasn't bad, or it was quite good.
They often mean, "It was truly outstanding." The minimization is used in both directions.
This tendency for emotional restraint and irony is why the source provides a really serious cautionary note on when not to use sarcasm.
It's simply too fragile a communication tool. You have to treat it as a high-risk strategy because its success is entirely dependent on perfect transmission and reception.
Rule 1. Avoid it absolutely in writing, especially professional emails or casual texts.
Without tone, sarcasm just becomes literal communication. If you write, "That was the worst presentation I've ever seen, thanks a lot," as a joke, the recipient only reads the critique and the fake gratitude. They will be deeply offended.
They have no way to decode your ironic intent.
None.
Rule 2. Sarcasm requires deep, shared context. Only use it with people you know extremely well and whose sense of humor you understand.
It just doesn't work with strangers, clients, or new bosses.
And Rule 3.
If you are at all unsure of your ability to convey the right exaggerated or deadpan tone, just stick to direct, unambiguous language. The social cost of misunderstood sarcasm, the resulting offense, far, far outweighs the comedic gain. So having navigated the high-stakes world of indirect requests and sarcasm, we turn now to the essential social rituals that govern daily English interaction, starting with the ubiquitous, seemingly meaningless exchange known as small talk.
Right. Why do English speakers spend so much time talking about things that don't matter? The weather, traffic, abstract weekend plans.
The pragmatic function of small talk, these conversations about superficial topics, it's not informational, it's relational.
Okay.
It acts as a crucial cultural safety mechanism. Before people can move into any substantive discussion, small talk is used to establish that you are non-threatening, that you share cultural assumptions, and that you're willing to invest in building rapport.
It's the handshake before the meeting.
That's a great way to put it.
In some cultures, particularly those focused on community, seeing a friend means immediately asking, where are you going, or what are you doing now? Our sources note that in English, this is seen as overly inquisitive and intrusive.
An invasion of privacy is viewed as spying.
Instead, the core English greeting ritual is the question, how are you? Or, how's it going?
And the entire social contract hinges on the response to this question.
This is the most critical insight in this entire section, I think. How are you? Is not a literal medical or psychological inquiry.
No.
It is a phatic ritual designed to acknowledge the other person and confirm social standing.
Precisely. You should never, under any circumstances, provide a detailed medical history, a complex narrative about your terrible divorce, or a deep analysis of your emotional state.
That level of detail is categorized as too much information, and it makes the listener profoundly uncomfortable.
because they're not prepared to engage in genuine emotional support in that moment.
So the social contract requires a specific, positive, or at least neutral reply, regardless of how you actually feel.
Yes. The only correct answer, even if you are having the worst day of your life, is the prescribed response. I'm fine, thanks. And you must maintain this social equilibrium.
The fact that the ritual requires everyone to lie and say they are fine, even during a crisis, just illustrates the priority of English pragmatics.
Relational harmony trumps factual accuracy.
So when our listeners need to start a conversation with a stranger, a colleague in the elevator, a person at the bus step, they have to stick to these prescribed, neutral, safe topics.
And we have three main safe conversational areas. The absolute perennial favorite, especially in climates like the UK or the Northeast US, is the weather.
Simple observations like, lovely weather, isn't it? Or looks like it's going to rain later, are always acceptable.
Second, traffic or travel. Commiserating over a shared inconvenience is an excellent bonding tool. The traffic was terrible this morning, wasn't it?
And third, the always reliable, the weekend. Questions about past or future low-stakes activities. Do you have any plans for the weekend, or how was your weekend?
And now for the mirror image, the taboo topics. These are conversations that are perfectly normal and functional in other cultures, but are considered intrusive, rude, and often aggressive in English-speaking social contexts.
The financial area is the most tightly guarded.
Never ever ask, what is your salary? How much did you pay for your house? Or what is your annual bonus? Discussing specific wages or wealth is considered extremely rude and intensely private.
Similarly, steer clear of personal metrics. Do not ask about age, especially asking a woman, how old are you?
And absolutely do not inquire about marital status or reproductive choices. Are you married? Or why aren't you planning to have children? These are deeply private decisions.
And finally, a highly critical cultural note regarding personal appearance. Never comment on someone's weight, body shape, or size.
While in some cultures, an observation like, you have become fat, might be intended as a sign of prosperity, in English culture, this is almost always perceived as an aggressive and highly offensive insult.
Avoid all critical or unsolicited commentary on personal appearance. So once you've successfully initiated small talk, the pragmatic goal shifts to maintaining flow. The source material warns against dead-end answers.
Right. Never answer a question that invites a narrative with just a simple yes or no. If someone asks, did you enjoy your holiday? And you simply say, yes, you have killed the conversation.
You force them to generate the next topic, making the interaction feel like an interrogation.
And the key conversational lifeline is the phrase that returns the question, maintaining the dialogue's momentum.
So the better, polite way to respond is to provide a brief detail and then immediately pass the talking stick back.
Right. Yes, it was fantastic. I spent the week hiking in the mountains. What about you? Did you get up to anything special recently?
That little return phrase prevents the conversation from stalling awkwardly.
And finally, just as crucial as initiating the talk, is ending it gracefully. You cannot abruptly end the interaction by just saying bye and walking away.
That is rude, and it signals that you found the conversation tedious. You have to provide a clear signal that you're wrapping up. The sources call it a pre-closing.
A pre-closing. It's a mandatory multi-step ritual. Step 1. You must give a reason for leaving, justifying your departure without implying blame on the other person.
So you could say, right, I really need to get back to my desk. Or the highly polite phrase, I don't want to keep you any longer.
Implying the other person is busy, yes. Step 2. You must reference the future or offer a compliment about the current interaction. It was lovely chatting with you, or we should catch up again soon.
And step 3, the final closing. A simple, decisive, bye.
A complete, graceful exit sounds like this. Anyway, I better let you go. I have a call starting shortly. It was great catching up. Have a nice day. This structured conclusion ensures the end of the conversation maintains the relational harmony you just built with the small talk.
We've covered a lot. Requests, refusals, humor, and social entry and exit. Our final section addresses how to manage the inevitable communication breakdowns that happen when speed or complexity is too high.
Right, focusing on how to get clarity without causing offense.
We return to the absolute cardinal rule of clarification. Never say what when you don't understand something.
Well, you literally mean, what did you say? The aggressive, sharp tone implies, I wasn't paying attention, say that again immediately. It's confrontational.
So the solution is to use polite alternatives that externalize the difficulty of comprehension. You make the speaker responsible for their unclear delivery, not the listener responsible for a lack of intelligence.
Exactly. For formal or professional situations, stick to pardon, or the very formal, I beg your pardon, or could you repeat that, please?
And in informal settings,
The best choice is sorry, said with a rising, questioning inflection. It signals confusion without sounding demanding.
what if the problem is just speed, if the speaker is talking too fast, which is a common source of breakdown?
You have to intervene politely, focusing on the speed, not their clarity. Could you speak a little slower, please? It is far better to be polite and slow the conversation down than to just nod along and misunderstand everything.
And the reverse situation is when you are explaining a complex idea and you need to check the listener's comprehension. Here, the sources warn us never to use the phrasing, "Do you understand?"
That phrase instantly establishes a teacher-student dynamic. It sounds incredibly patronizing, as though you're questioning the intellectual capability of the listener.
It's aggressive and insults their intelligence.
So instead, you must use polite alternatives that place the responsibility for comprehension on the quality of your explanation, not the listener's intellect.
And the most appropriate professional phrase in modern English is...
Does that make sense?
Other softer options might include, do you know what I mean? Or the slightly more informal, "Are you with me?"
These confirm engagement without being patronizing or aggressive.
Finally, we address correcting factual mistakes softly. Given the overriding principle of avoiding confrontation and maintaining relational harmony or saving face, how do we correct someone when we know they're definitively wrong?
We learned earlier that saying, no, that is wrong, is way too blunt. The technique, called softening, relies on humility and questioning your own certainty, even when you are 100% sure of the facts.
The underlying philosophy is that preserving the relationship is more important than proving who is factually correct.
Yes. You preface your correction by questioning your own memory or certainty, which minimizes the confrontational element.
So instead of being definitive, you start with phrases like, "Actually, I think it might be," or "I'm not sure that's right, but I thought."
Let's apply this in a high-stakes scenario. Your colleague states, the deadline is Tuesday. You know, definitively that the deadline is Monday. The rude, confrontational response is, no, you idiot, it's Monday.
Whereas the polite, relationship-preserving response softens the blow.
Right. You'd say, actually, I thought it was Monday. Shall we check the schedule together to be sure? This collaborative approach ensures the correction happens without shaming the other person.
We have covered an enormous amount of ground. Let's quickly review the 5 core scenarios presented in the sources exercises, focusing on why the pragmatic answer is the only correct one.
Okay. Scenario 1. Politeness, boss's pen. The correct structure avoids the imperative command, give me your pen, and uses the indirect, questioning modal verb. Could I borrow your pen for a second, please?
Scenario 2. Implied meaning. Ugly clothes. Your friend seeks an opinion on an outfit you hate. The correct response avoids direct insult by using non-committal, safe language.
It's interesting. Very colorful.
This preserves the friendship while avoiding a lie that would require you to give lengthy praise.
Scenario 3. Small talk, stranger at bus stop. We established that private questions like salary or marital status are taboo. The safe, universally acceptable topic to establish rapport is the weather. Cold day, isn't it?
Scenario 4. Implied request. Dark room. When someone states, "It's a bit dark in here," we learn that this is a complaint disguised as a request. The correct action is to perform the required service. Turn on the light, rather than discussing the literal light levels. And Scenario 5. Ending conversation. Leaving. The rule requires a pre-closing signal, not an abrupt exit. The correct farewell involves a reason and a compliment. Anyway, I'd better let you go now. I have to run. It was great catching up. #OutTrip2.
So we've reached the conclusion of this extensive deep dive into the hidden rules of English. I think the final overarching key takeaway has to be that the social function of what you say is always more important than the literal accuracy of what you say.
That's a great summary.
Mastering pragmatics means mastering the underlying cultural desire for non-confrontation and deference.
We've seen how much structural and cognitive effort goes into avoiding bluntness, confrontation, and direct orders. It's fascinating. Mastering grammar allows you to assemble sentences. Mastering pragmatics allows you to successfully assemble and maintain social and professional relationships.
The goal, consistently, is non-confrontation, even if it requires significant linguistic acrobatics, or, as we noted, a social lie, like declaring, "I'm fine," when your world is falling apart.
So, Here's the final provocative thought for you to chew on until our next deep dive. If people in English-speaking cultures are required to be so constantly indirect, softening every request, disguising every complaint, and using complex irony to deliver difficult truths, how much cognitive effort does it genuinely take a native speaker just to navigate simple social interactions?
That's a good question.
And does this constant, exhausting need for structural softening truly lead to greater, deeper social politeness? Or does it simply result in deeper, more frequent misunderstandings when the subtleties of tone, body language, and shared context are inevitably missed?
Something worth pondering as you decode your next conversation.
We'll see you for the next deep dive.